Yes, it's Kevin Thomson!
Wow, back again.
Manager of the year.
First one ever, innit? First manager of the year ever.
You seem a bit more excited than me.
Are you not really up for it, is it, you know?
You're not proud?
Nah, I'm delighted. My
First year in management,
my boy's
brilliant.
not happy that I stole it out of his bedroom, so...
What an achievement.
So, your son's got his dad's, some of his dad's in his bed. What is it you've got your dad's in your bed?
What a size.
The magazine collection, innit?
Aye, that's one of them, but the other collection is cracker. What a size, honestly. Like, I got dropped off in the taxi today. Taxi driver was giving you abuse today, wasn't
He was a nice fella, wasn't he?
Who was giving him a boost?
he?
He was alright.
No, the driver was shouting.
Or was he a
abuse.
Celtic fan?
Nah.
I don't know what he was.
Well, he sounded like Rangers, no?
No, I don't think he was.
No, he's no Celtic fan.
Kev Kyle?
Nah, it wasn't a Kev. I thought Kev would be here, where is he?
No, he's no.
No, what is it he's done?
We'll try to get him out the door. Try to get him sacked. Try to get him sacked in song. He's
Try to get him on a podcast.
actually doing
He's
murder than
everywhere.
anybody.
I seen him interviewing you after the game. That is...
Good, isn't it?
Aye, good, aye.
Good questions you answered it.
Same question 5 times.
That's harsh on the big man.
That's such a good wee link there. See, as two managers a year, is it really hard after a game to be interviewed?
It is, aye, it is tough. Like, emotions is... It's easy when you win, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is, it's natural. But my first defeat was Annan, even though we got beat in the Premier Sports Cup. And I remember doing it, and you have to, in my opinion, show a bit of class, win, lose or draw. It's what I believe in. But it's easier. Team talks, everything's so much easier when you win. So I suppose when you learn a bit about yourself when you get beat, don't you?
Yeah, I just, my big thing was didn't slaughter the boys. Because they've been great for us.
No, of course, aye.
You don't want to just go out and say, well, they never done this, they never done that. It's a group thing, innit?
And listen, you'll be very lucky to be at a team that you win week in, week out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're going to have humps and bumps. It's just the way it is. I think the biggest thing for me, and I suppose, no, I don't want to give side advice, but the wee bit is that the wee bit is that you probably learn more about the boys when you get beat, even though you didn't want to get beat. You want to win obviously all the time, but I think you learn a wee bit about yourself, and then if you can use that as a positive, plus the lads can, I suppose, stay grounded and not get too carried away with themselves, because obviously you made a good start and come to watch us. I think if you get carried away with yourself, it can sometimes bite you in the backside.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it is the worst thing.
No, I actually found it, and I don't know if I seen the boys after the game and how much they were hurting. And it's great to see that. I don't mean it's great to get beat, but it's great to see that side of how much they care. So listen, it's just reacting in the right way. But listen, we're not on about you the day.
No, that's not. But Tom was saying about humps and bumps along the way. That's constant for you, isn't it?
That's never left me, the humps and bumps. But Tomo, the last time we interviewed you were at Kelty. Such a successful season. How's that changed since then?
Just obviously through the summer, really. We tried to put a team together. We had quite a lot of boys already signed up. And in the end, we just felt it was the right time to move on, really. It wasn't so much like we felt we had took the club as far as we can. It's a great club, great people behind the scenes. Ultimately in football, everybody will know you're never going to see eye to eye with everyone. But the group of players we left, I think if I go and have another 10 jobs, hopefully, and some of them will be successful, I'm not so sure I'll get as good a group of boys as we managed to put together at Kelty.
So what was it, Tom? You just couldn't get the players in that you wanted?
Aye, a wee bit of that. I suppose, like, you've got... Well, you had Queen of the South obviously coming down, you had Dunfermline, obviously Falkirk, like big budgets trying to compete, so it was, we just felt like the back end, we really liked a wee bit more back end to try and obviously go and add to what we already had. Always worked off the term when we were there that we kind of had 6 or 7 big hitters, and that's not doing any other lads a disservice, but that's how we tried to manipulate the budget. That to have A, you had to have B, if that makes sense. You'll know that yourself.
That's why he's on 50 quid.
And we felt as though we'd done that really well. Plus, you need to be brave and back your connections really to get the right loans players. And I think if you look at the loans players that we had last year, the value for money that we had off them without disclosing what we paid, like you think of Conor Barron, do you know what I mean? For
Aberdeen.
Obviously August to January, and then it was a massive miss for us, but then we managed to get Max Kucherachi with Kieran and Gwen. Played near enough every minute, every game. Big Danny Finlayson, like brilliant deal for us. For Jim Goodwin looked after us at St Mirren, so we managed to do really well. Harrison Clark was probably the only one that, through no fault of anyone else's, he was injured really for the majority of the time that he was there. And I think that's, as you all know, when you're in the lower leagues and you've got maybe 17, 18 players, you have to have that 1 or 2 connections to try and get loan ones. And if we felt that we'd done that really well.
Yeah.
Well, I'm frustrated hearing that because...
Sexually
as well, as always. That doesn't leave me that side yet. But I'm frustrated, and I don't mean your situation because I don't know exactly about it on. But in the footballing side, when a manager takes care of business on the pitch, then it's up to if you get the results and you get where you want to go with the club, then it's up to them then
to match that ambition.
And I'm not saying that about your situation, I just mean in general. when that sort of side of things happens.
Yeah, definitely.
Happy with that?
So how's the break been? Frustrating? Are you going to get back in, enjoying it?
I suppose like desperate to get back in, and you never. I think the type of person you never lose that competitive edge. So when you've not got games to challenge yourself against other managers and put your team on the pitch on a Saturday to try and play for 3 points, it's a void in your life. But I suppose I enjoyed the kids a wee bit. That I've probably not neglected my kids, but my wife might say that. But I've obviously not gave them as much time because you know it 24/7, innit?
Yeah,
You think about it, you eat, sleep, and drink it. It is a kind of 24-hour job. So when I had the academy plus some media stuff and Kelty, you were constantly on the phone. You were constantly thinking about how to get better. To not have that, I feel a wee bit like kind of climbing the walls a wee bit. At the same time, hopefully, if you can get me a job, it'll not be that long.
Be fit here now.
You didn't seem to be getting me.
And maybe we've not got the pull that I think we've got, mate.
No, I think so.
But you've brought your boys into Hibs as well, haven't you?
The two boys are
Two boys in there, right?
So obviously I never get to watch them very often. So even though they've had a break, they just started back last night. Saturdays I'll be able to go and watch them on a Saturday. So
and they're getting called Deeks and Gaz in there.
Yeah, they've both had the Deeks and Gaz haircut, to be fair. They've both, not so much the millets and the wee Deeks' wee kind of rat tail bit that they had at one stage, but they've both had the kind of blonde streaks there, so they're. My oldest has actually got a wee bit of buzz cut, a bit like you.
Hey?
A lot of people's got that now, by the way.
Who?
A lot of people's got
happens,
that hair.
Got in the
That's what
start
happens,
fairy
man.
buzz cut.
You brought
You've got the
Lesnar
forehead
that?
for it on you.
No, the forehead's massive, that. How big is that forehead, man? I do my tactics on that forehead. I've no eyebrows either, man. Everything's going wrong.
This is good. So just a wee bit off the cuff here, how important is it, obviously a successful season last season, how important is it to have a great first team coach?
Really important, mate. Really important. That's why Jordy's available, mate. If you want one.
He's got to be on loan. First coach ever to go on loan.
That's what he says to me. I'm going to be the first coach in history to be put on loan.
He can't. He could be the first coach to ever be sacked within 3 games.
No, he's been fine. He was clipping up games and all that for me this morning, mate.
It's just genuinely my confidence. Listen, I'm confident to actually put a session on. I think if I'd done it, but it's been the confidence to have a purpose in what you're actually doing it for. No, anybody can put a session, read a book and put it on. What's your meaning through it? To get the boys sort of question it. I wouldn't be confident now to deliver that. Mate, that's no good for you to hear a coach isn't confident to do it.
How do you think that'll be? Because I'm kind of... I'm great to do something soon.
It's great to tell you that 4 weeks into the season starting. If I've told you that at the start. But listen, we're all learning, aren't we? At the same time.
That's it.
No, I think that's a good thing, mate. I think like if you're confident enough to say that you're not confident enough to go in and deliver a whole session, I think that's good. I think that means that you know where you're at. I think if you think you're better than you are, it bites you in the backside and players will see through that. So I think, listen, you're in good hands with Si. Just if you were mine and I was working with Kelty, like what I done with Jordy, and it's not that Jordy was not capable, because he was way more than capable. As a partnership, we just drip fed him doing different bits.
Right.
And then I think that grew his confidence, it grew my confidence, it grew the players' confidence in him. And I have to say, like, if Jordy was to be picked up and thrown in at the deep end at Rangers or Celtic or wherever, I can guarantee the boys would love training. Because he's got a great way about him. And he'll be the first to say, I'm pretty sure, even though he's obviously my best mate and my mucker, you grow every time you get on the pitch. Yeah. Every time you're in the position, every time you start to speak to the players, how you deliver. You could do a drill 100 times and probably deliver it different ways. And I just think like the only way of learning is being on the pitch and getting your hands dirty. Yeah.
You have done it. You've done quite a bit. I think we probably have.
Aye.
No, I'd say we're breastfed you than drink fed you.
Aye. Aye. What can I say that? Not much of that. I certainly need to pick up my...
Come here, you.
But
it's alright. I've had to get him in the dressing room a couple of times and say it's alright.
Everything will be fine.
But obviously, Tom, as we've said about, we put your name in for every job. Has there been clubs there knocking at your door?
Motherwell just came up on it.
I've had a few sniffs, as you always do. It's I got a bit of advice off of Daz the day, actually. I've hit it off with Daz then on that. Well, I know
Daz
he's
a great
obviously
guy.
not. And he had said to me that he obviously felt that I'd done the right thing, blah, blah, blah. But to enjoy not having a job, and I suppose like, normally when you didn't have a job, you normally get sacked. So I suppose like the fact that I decided to leave on my terms was I should feel a wee bit more comfortable with it. Mm-hmm. I didn't, just because it's the way I am. I want a job, but at the same time, I want the right job. I don't want to just be that person that kind of applies for every job and kind of be the merry-go-round. I'm not saying I'm any different from anyone else, but I want to try and present myself to help me get to where I want to get to. I've done a lot of yards, like 6 years of the academy has been going in November. I've done the B team starting at the 13s, I've done the 15s, I've done the 18s, I've done the B team. I've took a risk at going to Kelty, even though Kelty took a risk as well. But probably know a lot of people would have left the B team at Rangers to take that chance, to go from a full-time job to a part-time job. So I feel as though I've took calculated risks, but risks at the same time. So I feel as though like a lot of hard work in that 5-6 year period to then throw it away for like maybe know the right job would be naive. So I'm not saying I'm cute or clever, but I'm certainly proactive when it comes to having a vision and seeing what the right job is. What that is, I'm not so sure, but I've got a wee idea in my head to where I would like to go and what path I'd like to try and get on.
No, you're definitely cute. Don't know what about that.
He is.
Isn't he?
I need to get a buzz cut.
He's looking handsome. He is looking handsome. Have you been to see a lot of football? I know you came to Trust, but have you been to any other games?
I didn't want to be that guy side that sits in the kind of stand that
He's got your job.
I did want to be that type of person. So I did say to, excuse my pun with the boy's name, but the guy that runs Spartans, I did say to him, please tell Dougie that I'm not wanting his job, because I watched him against you, and then I watched him again on the Tuesday night against Hearts B team, because obviously I've got quite a good bank of players at a certain age band, which obviously like Burjonases, etc., Danny Finlaysons, obviously you've got like your Leon Kings, your Lowrys. I know like a lot of that age band in Scotland. Probably the next age band now that some of the ones are starting to play 18s and B team, I've missed that boat a wee bit. So I just always think there's a wee gem here or there. I think you kind of know quite a lot of the League One and League Two players and Championship players, same with Premier League, plus the exposure that they get, obviously being able to pick up different games. I quite like, we went to Bonnyrigg on Saturday to watch obviously Forfar.
Bonnyrigg won 2-0?
Bonnyrigg won 2-0, they were very good. They'll be a tough nut to crack, especially
Good start they've made, isn't it?
Aye, because the pitch is difficult, they've got some good players. The Gray brothers are really technically good. They've got the big lads at the back. They've got a certain way of playing.
Yeah.
The boy up front never played, but Kev Smith will score goals for them. So they've got a good player. Right? So they've got good players, and they're a unique wee town, obviously, with great wee support. So they'll be a tough nut to crack. So listen, I know that was a kind of long way going around, but we'll watch as many games as we can. But I'm not going to be that person that sits when somebody's under a wee bit of pressure. Unless you see me at Broomhill too often.
No, that's what I'm going to say. Seen you started in the stand and he's up in the director's box. Started off with a track and next thing he had the suit on.
If it was that for it,
You had the Broomhill scarf on and with the suit on.
For you.
Without getting into great detail again at away, but see where sort of next job, what sort of things would you be looking for that would maybe...
I suppose you hit the nail on the head there. Somebody that's ambitious here, like I find it really difficult if people get a bit too carried away with expectation.
Yeah.
And I suppose I'm probably contradicting myself, because it wouldn't matter if a team were just trying to avoid relegation. I would want more, and I'd want to try and drive that to the players to get them to believe that they could be better than just being in a dogfight every week, if you know what I mean. But I've always quite liked the underdog tag. I think it's quite a good mentality to have, that you feel as though you need to work harder than the person that's better than you. I suppose somebody that's got a bit of ambition, a squad that I feel as though I could get better out of the person that's already been there. And that just unfortunate is the industry. You've got to back yourself against everybody else. Si's got to back himself against me, I've got to back myself against Si. So the jobs that would, I think, same again with it being cute and clever, when you look at like leaving Kelty, I'm not so sure I want to go and take a League Two part-time job. I'm not so sure I want to take another part-time job, because Kelty were obviously a great part-time team. And then when you start to look at the jobs in Scotland, like your Hibs, your Hearts, your Rangers, your Celtic, your Aberdeen, are probably out with your remit. And then you look below that and you've got some great managers that are doing great jobs and punching above their weight. So they're, unfortunately for us in Scotland, there's probably no a big market, the actual jobs that would be available and ones that would excite you. And that's not me kind of knocking any team. It's just, I would feel confident in myself that if I was going in and it was the right environment and it was the right club that had the right ambition, I feel as though Kevin Thomson could go in there and do really well.
I think that's so important though, Si.
Yeah.
That you don't just take any job. I know you touched on that, but it has to be right for you. Do you know what I mean?
That part-time one's... So we've played 4 games in the last, 2 weeks? So you can't get on the training pitch, mate. With a brand new team. You can't get on and coach, and Thursday's got to be kind of almost like a recovery, mate, because you've played Saturday, Tuesday, you can't do too much on a Thursday, so it's tough, mate.
I've always felt like my biggest strength with the boys was the kind of man management part. Even when I was like with under 13s, I felt like
You'd go for a pint in that way, wouldn't you?
Well, maybe not a pint, no. Maybe not a pint, but I felt like even with our 13s, like, when you're talking about 12-year-old lads, like built up a good relationship with the parents and a good relationship with the boys, minus giving them any detail as young footy players, just like building up a relationship that they felt comfortable with you.
Yeah.
And then it was the same with the 15s, and then I felt like it was the same with the 18s. I used to without blowing smoke up my backside, but a lot of the reserves when they were with Graham and Peter would come and ask me for advice, and they weren't even my players. So I thought to myself, well, I must be doing something right. I must be approachable. I must hopefully I must be a good listener. I must be. So I feel as though like my strengths, what I've kind of like brought up is suited to full time, because you get to have breakfast
every day.
You get to pass each other in the corridor. You get to be on the training pitch more. You get exposed to more time with your lads. So you get that chance to build up a great relationship. Then I think back to myself, what you've just mentioned there, to build up a relationship that I had with the Kelty players, which I'd like to think was really good. You're only really getting them for an hour and a half on a Tuesday, an hour and a half on a Thursday. And unfortunately, you've got like a boy like a Cal who would come into the office, who'd pop his head in the kit, and we love Higgy to bits. He's a top boy, catalyst for a lot of the success that we had at Kelty. And he's got his worker gear on. And he's like, Gaffer, all right, and what we did tonight, and you'd have a boil and it was brilliant. And I so wished that I could sit and have a coffee with Cal in the morning, a bit of scrambled egg on toast, you know what I mean? And then you'd then disappear and you'd prep training and you would get organised, and then you'd maybe see them afterwards. Boys are in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Boys are getting massaged. A lot of the stuff that you didn't get for us at part-time. And then I suppose when you've been exposed to that, and then you go, not back the way, but back into the having to do the part-time bit, which was brilliant. I loved every minute of it, but I still feel as though a lot of my strengths would be suited to full-time.
See, on that, because I think the exact same as you, it's actually hard to get personal time with the boys because you've got so much going on, and they're, like you say, rushing in for their work, getting changed, and you're out to train. It's 10 o'clock at night by the time we finish, so you don't want to stand and talk to the boys for 20 minutes. They want to get up the road. So would you phone boys?
Nah, not overly, but like I done like wee daft things that, like, if I felt like a lad was like down and I felt as though I maybe never got the chance, because it was maybe like you maybe done a bit of shooting at the end of training and it's peeing down with rain like it normally is on a Tuesday and a Thursday night at Kelty, so you're soaked to the bone. The boys want to get in the shower, get in their cars and get away. Usually will be the same. A lot of boys will travel together, so like, you know, it's like the leader of the pack will be telling Bobby and Jimmy to hurry up and let's go, because they want to get home. Some of them have been at graft all day. So I think it's hard to have like a set way. I think you need to be open. I didn't overly like a WhatsApp or like being involved in messaging players, but I did use different scenarios where I maybe felt like a player had been a wee bit down in the dumps and I never got a chance to speak to him after the game because you're doing media or whatever, and maybe sent them a message on a Saturday night to say, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, to make them feel good about themselves, to know that they knew I was thinking about them. I just never got an opportunity to speak to them. And then sometimes you miss opportunities. It's like timing can be so important, and as a manager, the unfortunate thing, Si, is like, I think, and I was comfortable in that, you're never going to be perfect and you're never going to tell the players the right things all the time. And sometimes when a moment passes, you just need to forget about it and move on to the next one. I think if we overthink things as managers, because you think about a million and 20 things, don't you? You can sometimes then miss a wee bit of focus on what's important.
That's spot on.
But it's so difficult because if you've got a sort of style of play and you want that, it's hard when boys do it all day, then to come to training. Part of it needs to be, I don't mean fun, like fucking run about with a smile on your face, on your willy. I don't mean that, do you know what I mean?
Is that what you think's fun?
But I just mean in general though.
That's maybe why this coaching is not for you, mate.
But I just mean as in, it's got to be sort of up tempo. You can't really spend a lot of time on playing out and how you see football, if you do what I mean with that. Yeah. If you had every day.
You don't want boys standing out for 40 minutes when you're only there for
exactly.
an hour and a half.
No, listen, we see when we got the job side, there was analysis that important for us, not really, because we had the best players. Was getting them fit important massively. Was doing everything with the ball massive because we wanted to be a passing team. We never overly complicated training. The boys worked really, really hard and everything was with the ball. So like, if we wanted to play for the back, we'd do like a lot of combination stuff that went to a goal. Do you know what I mean? But you might end up with like your centre half hitting a shot. Do you know what I mean? Because it was like rotational stuff. But it was like kind of bedding in ideas of how you play, how you move. Do you know what I mean? Like always receiving, always passing, always like, I always talk about like smooth passes, slick passes. So we'd like done a lot of that without overcomplicating it. Plus, we trained on half a pitch. So we never really had like enough bodies on the pitch to play like full shape, 11v11. And then sometimes you'd have like 13, 14 players, didn't want to go like 11v3 or 4, do you know what I mean? And make it false and kind of bore the lads a wee bit. So we tried to bed our ideas in with drills that we'd done. And I know a lot of people talk about patterns and analysis and showing the players, and 100%, like there's time for it, but we felt for the small space of time that we had on a Tuesday and a Thursday that getting players to play with a smile on their face, getting them to run about, getting them a sweat on, working really hard, getting them really fit. In my opinion, we were the fittest team in the league at Kelty. And we probably never had the most mobile players. But by the way, nobody go through that wall for you. Like he was an animal. Pound for pound, he was brilliant. But I'm not so sure Big Doug liked the running in the pre-season and the tempo of training, but he was a diamond for us. But I would say, like, when you go and play against a St Johnstone and you go to extra time, normally a part-time team, bear in mind a League 2 team to a Premier League team, not like a League 1 or a Championship team, or even a full-time League 1 team. Our boys were still going strong, and that's not that St Johnstone weren't, but my point being is it gave us belief that what we were doing was actually doing things right.
Brilliant.
Amazing. I was going to throw this to both.
What's that one you always wanted to TIG, is it?
It's a great start.
You always think 20 minutes of TIG's a good idea. But within your shape,
Bibbing about the shots.
It's a bad one for me, isn't it? What I'm going to say is I'm going to throw this to both of you. You obviously early on, Tom, your first year in management last season, what were the biggest challenges that you faced?
Trying to keep everybody happy. Because ultimately...
When's that no pun?
Ultimately, probably my team talk, my very first game, I think it was a pre-season game. Just trying to think what one it was. Was it Montrose maybe? Wasn't Montrose at home? It's terrible, I've normally got a good memory. But we were
you played Montrose, that's
we
right.
were still in the, where you had to, we were getting changed in the social, we weren't allowed to use the dressing rooms because of COVID. So there was still like the social distancing and certain spaces and players having obviously their own wee bit, etc. And I remember walking about and I was nervous, really nervous doing the team talk. I remember walking from my dressing room up and having a wee donder about the boys, and the boys were like obviously half changed, etc. We got like a match day presentation, it's got the set pieces and obviously the team, etc. The team goes up on the telly. And I was kind of walking around and I said to them, and I mean this, and I had like that wee bit of sticky throat that yous are all going to mean the world to us and yous are all going to be important. Because that's what I believe in, so we'll treat you all right whether you're the 18th, 19th, 20th man. And that's what I was saying to you, if you concentrate on the 11 players, and listen, when you're winning every week and the team's doing really well and the boys have got the jerseys, sometimes it's hard to get in. I then think that's the management part, that the 12th, 13th, 14th, right up to your 18th, 19th man feel like they're part of the group. So I made a conscious effort knowing that I Jose Mourinho on my pro licence said, if you ever find a way keeping everybody happy, please let me know, because it's impossible. So I thought to myself, well, if it's impossible for Jose, I'm going to give it a go. And I'm not saying that every player was happy, because I'm guaranteed there'll be players that didn't like us. I'd like to think that the majority of the squad, the way we treated them, would understand that you can only pick 11 players, you can only potentially put on 5 subs, there's going to be people that disappointed, you're going to have to go up to Elgin and potentially have 18, 19 players. It's scenarios that unfortunately pop up. I think if you can treat the boys properly and you include them in everything, then they'll be disappointed, they'll not be happy with you. But if they're honest enough with themselves, whether it's that day or a week down the line or a month down the line, that they know that you're actually treating them right with a wee bit of respect and humility. And that's, in my opinion, all you can do as a manager.
That's spot on, because looking back to last week, we played Saturday, played Tuesday against Cowdenbeath. Came in Thursday, the whole Wednesday I was thinking, I'm going to give the boys that played 11 a lighter session and I'll take the ones that never played for a harder session, but then I didn't want, it was a majority of the team that had played Saturday and Tuesday, it was the same bench, both games, because we'd done well. And I thought, I don't want to alienate the boys for the first team. I don't want the first team to come in and do 30 minutes and then go to get a massage and the boys are out for an hour and a half, because then they start to think, we're completely set. But now when I look back, we've done maybe a shorter session, but when included everyone, maybe a wee bit too hard. I mean, I think Saturday boys a wee bit leggy after, and I thought I probably gave the boys that played too much.
No, what I would say about that, mate, I actually think you've done a brilliant thing.
Yeah.
No, why? Because see if you got Slaney or Big Kev to take that group and it felt like a bomb squad, and that's not any disrespect to Slaney or that. See the fact that you're taking it. So when Mick used to take the boys that didn't get involved, Mick Beale, he used to always make a fact of him taking it. So it didn't feel like it was a session, it wasn't a first team session. It didn't feel like it was a session, so we used to do the same. There was scenarios where like you were coming up for a big period and you had 3 or 4 key games coming up and you had to look after some boys. And some of the boys, like a Tids in that, like Tids would come in and he wanted to train. So he wants to train every minute, every session. A lot of the boys were like, Barjo, I want to train. Do you know what I mean? Higgies, they want to train. But we would have to like strangle them all almost to say that, listen, this is what we've got, this is the next period that we're coming, it's going to be massive for us. We then have the cup game coming up as well. The likelihood is you're going to play a lot of minutes within that. Trust us, just relax, man. And then sometimes we would ask Dean if he could support bringing a couple of masseurs in, and I would float around to do what I used to do with the boys to make sure everybody was happy. But when Geordie put a session on for the lads that potentially weren't playing that needed a top up, I would make sure that I was there. So it was like, it wasn't as if like, we just pushed to the side and there's all the boys getting a massage, and it's the same. We would make sure that the boys that come off the pitch got an opportunity to get a massage. It wasn't just like there's 10 starters. So just wee things. By the way, the players probably didn't even think about it. But I think it's really important as a leader if you care about people, you're actually, that thought process is in your mind. That's not just like, I'll turn up at training on a Tuesday night, that's an easy session or Jordy can take and I'm having a night off. And I'll go and have a Blair and a coffee and a biscuit. You're actually still out setting up, you're still getting the balls in, you're still speaking to the players, you're still making sure that like when they're having that wee water drink that you're speaking to whoever. I'm just using a botty as an example who's maybe not played for a couple of weeks. But you're right, do you know what I mean? See him working hard, like, do you know what I mean? Like, got to keep growing, you got to keep going, you know what I mean? Just wee bits. And listen, we love Botty bits, we had a massive soft spot for him, but at times like a Joe was scoring goals, a Callum was like irreplaceable, it's really fast scoring goals. So unfortunately, there's going to be people that's disappointed. I mean, that's
mental. Last Tuesday when after the game when we were driving back, I said to you for the first day, I was like, I'll take the boys that haven't played. And you went, no, I'll take them. Do you know what I mean? I remember that actual conversation.
That's a great thing.
And I wasn't taking them as in...
But then I went against my instinct. Like you says to me, they can't go with your gut, which I should have just took the boys, and I ended up doing a big session all together because I wanted everyone to be together, and I felt like the boys that had played had done too much. So again, it's like you say, it's learning. You're not going to get everything spot on.
100%.
This is brilliant, though.
This is a masterclass. It's brilliant.
What a guy. You didn't get a job after this, mate. Chuck it.
I might as well get up, mate.
See, in terms of if you were going into Kelty League One this season with what you had, did you not think you would be able to compete at the top end, and was that maybe the problem?
No, 100%. When we looked at the budget and the players that were signed, obviously had a Borjonas out of contract, so naturally it's like any player, whether you're at Kelty or whether you're at Rangers, if you're out of contract and you feel as though you're one of the best players in the team, if not one of the best players in the league, then you naturally ask for more money. So we knew, like, with the budget that was sitting left with 14 or 15 signed players, we were going to have to try and be creative, which was fine. The biggest part was and it wasn't so much like the backing through behind the scenes, it was the players that we had identified, like boys like Liam Henderson. They obviously, like, they're hybrid, they like being part-time players, but they've got aspirations of going full-time. You know yourself, you get like certain players that are quite happy to stay part-time because they get a good wage and they've obviously got good jobs, etc. And that's only a really small market of players. It's like a small bank. If you have the biggest budget, then you can obviously have a good chance of getting some of the players. If you didn't, then you're fighting up maybe like an ex-banky players. You then have like the younger players that would actually rather less money to go full-time. Do you know what I mean? So they might be able to get an extra 50 quid a week part-time, but actually being full-time because it's their aspirations to be full-time players. You then get the player that thinks like being full-time is more attractive than being part-time. Playing at a bigger club but sitting on the bench is more attractive than being a part-time player. So you've got one thing I've tried to do, that I'm not saying that I agree with some of the players, but I've had to try and understand. Because what's right for me isn't always right for what the player is. It's alright saying, I would make this decision, but if the player decides that you want to make that decision, you've got to respect it. So when we looked at Cammy Barrentine, we had looked at him last year, signed for Airdrie, but he'd been a part-time player for a couple of years, so we felt as though like he was a good one for us. We never got him, obviously. We looked at Liam Henderson, he was another one, do you know what I mean? We knew he had aspirations to go for Arbroath, so he was a part-time player, do you know what I mean? But then he's obviously went full-time at Falkirk, right? Good signing for Falkirk in my opinion. He can play anywhere really, left centre-back, left-back, centre midfield, do you know what I mean? He's 6'3", 6'4", good lad, fit and athletic. So he was one that we had. The problem is what we felt was you're identifying 3 or 4 players, knowing that like you probably can only go and sign 2 or 3, and then you need to do that uncomfortable thing as a lower league manager, sit waiting for the big teams to decide who goes out on loan. Because when you've only maybe got a small part of the budget left and you're hoping that like a Premier League team, that I'm just using these figures as an example, that maybe a player's on 500 quid a week and you can contribute 100, 150 quid a week to his wages, it then makes the market really small. It's saturated, you know what I mean? So you can't go and get the player that's on like 1,000, 1,500 quid a week at a big club that club wants a 5, 6, 7, 800 pound contribution because that would be your highest earner, and you just can't afford it. It's not viable. So there's no point looking at the players. You might get a club that has a player that's on quite a big wage, but they only see him as a hot prospect and a big development thing, so they're actually no bored about a contribution. Same again, the players are no very often, do you know what I mean? They didn't come along, so you have to. I know I've went on a wee bit around about, but just to try and get an insight into what it's like.
So see with the loans, how did you use contact managers? I need a few loans.
You just, because I had quite a good player bank, plus I've obviously got Pizzo and Elliott, who obviously I've got like a lot of players, so they've got a big clientele. So I know obviously the Billy Kirkwood loans manager at Rangers, so he's got a brilliant knowledge of like what young players are coming through, what players go on loan, what kind of money people pay, etc. So you go and network really, you go and use your contacts. Like I knew Glassy obviously up at Aberdeen, Scotty was there at the time, that's where obviously Kieran and Gwenya, but they both represented the base as well. So you have to
Would they boys drive down for Aberdeen for training?
So same again, so you present the picture. So Connor and Kieran only used to train on a Thursday. So that meant that Aberdeen is young, hot prospects, and nobody can tell me that the loan deal for Connor Barron wasn't a successful one.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me that Kieran and Glen are going for League Two, playing every minute, every game. A lot of loans players say, and I'm not knocking anyone else, but a lot of loans players go to clubs and they didn't get a game. Whereas like Danny Finlayson played near enough every week. Connor Barron played near enough every week. Max Kucherachi, as soon as he got in the team, played near enough every week. Kieran Gwenya played near enough every week. And Harrison Clark would have had more exposure, 100%, if he obviously unfortunately wasn't injured. So we felt as though what we created and the ones that we actually identified to get in, we got it right. Because the last thing you want is, one, for the player, because I care about the player. Two, you didn't want to have that relationship with a bigger club than where you're at, because you don't want to burn bridges with them, because you never know when you need them again. So it's like, it's liaison and like networking and trying to build relationships, that when you get that young player, he's playing, he's learning, he's getting better, and you're sending him back better. I'm not so sure now that Kieran's signed for Rafe, obviously, in the Championship. The players, Danny's obviously over full-time in Ireland playing, Max Kucherachi's playing at St Johnstone in the first team. So I'm not so sure, like, without blowing smoke up our backside, that me and Geordie didn't help develop the players.
Brilliant. What about other managers? What you?
No, can I just jump in before that?
Of course you can.
I noticed maybe a couple of months back, or a month back, you were doing Villa.
Hi.
How was that?
Amazing, man.
What's that?
Amazing,
did you ask him, or did he say come down?
I just messaged him. He's been brilliant for me. So he's to be fair, like there was a scenario at Rangers that happened, and it was probably one of the first conversations that I had to go and see him. I'm not telling you about the scenario, but I had to go and see him, and he sat basically like this over his office, and he said, "Listen, if I'm going to help you get to here one day, which I know is what you want to do, then I need to open my door for you. So listen, my door's always open. Anything you need, it's there." So he's been, listen, we're not pals as if like we go for a pint, but hopefully got a good enough relationship and an understanding that like I can drop him a message to ask if he could help us out. Same again, if I was to get a job, I'd be on the phone to see if we could potentially get a loans player. Same again, that job needs to be big enough to attract some of the young players at obviously Villa, but to me, I think that hopefully, and it gives me confidence as an individual, that the manager's seen something quite good in me. Do you know what I mean? That he's willing to open his door, and to be fair to Geordie, he was like a wee starstruck boy.
Yeah,
he was
like, on your Instagram.
He was brilliant. But even if Geordie was sitting here, like he showed us around in the morning. We had breakfast in the morning. He took us out to training. He was like, we felt a wee bit like didn't want to impose ourselves, so we're kind of sitting at the physio buggy. And he's like, "Tom, anywhere you want." And I'm like, but they were doing a bit of shape because they played Liverpool on a Tuesday night. The tickets that he got us were top drawer, parking space right outside Villa Park. Like, he couldn't have looked after us any better.
Who was good in training, didn't they? Who impressed?
Well, Coutinho was obviously there.
Oh, wow.
They only done a wee bit, to be fair.
It's
I know John really well, so to be fair.
It's like watching
It's like watching you in the boxes, mate. The wee KB skinny box, mate.
I love that skinny box. You were ridiculous in that skinny box.
I love that skinny box.
Who else was good? Coutinho?
Them all, mate.
Standard brilliant.
Standard was good. To be fair, it was only light. They had to quote me on it, it's terrible that they quote me on your name, but they had a group that obviously done a wee bit extra. So they were like a couple of younger boys, and they were right behind us. So we were trying to watch like obviously shape, because they said they hadn't done this before, so they walked through basically because they played on this Saturday, I think. So they were match day -1 or 2, and then they done like a bit with the ball and a bit without the ball. Sorry, without the ball to start with, and a bit with the ball. But it was just a walkthrough,
right.
And Mick obviously presents all that. So obviously I was saying to Geordie, because I was trying to teach Geordie how we played at Kelty. Obviously not teach him, that sounds patronising, but like to show him like the bits that obviously I got an insight into, so we could obviously learn together. And then obviously he's fascinated to be watching Mick doing like what we were trying to do at Kelty. And obviously they've got Coutinho, who I'm not quoting how much money he earns a week, but slightly more than what and Mick's still coaching Coutinho. So I'm thinking to myself, well, what we were trying to do was right. And listen, we're not Aston Villa, we've not got the players, but at the same time we had good players in our league. Villa have got good players in their league, so it gave us kind of a reassurance that we were doing the right things, if you know what I mean. It's not that complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not doing. It's not doing the people a disservice, but it's getting the best out of people, which is, I think, is really important. And we watched the people behind us that I was going to say there before I was waffling. Was you're talking like 30, 40, 50 million pound players that are in that group, not including the group that are there that have got. You know what I mean? So it's like, listen, it's a different market. It's a different world.
He still needs to keep the players happy.
100%.
Same job,
100% the same job, and they have a good way, which obviously comes with staff, and I quite liked it. And it's probably what we didn't get to do at Kelty. What you mentioned earlier about that 1-to-1 time. They had like the manager could oversee everything. Mick had his cluster of players, which let's just say he was the defenders. Big Colin would obviously with the goalkeepers, and then he would like have Gazmack that would maybe be with the midfielders. and then he would maybe have like so and so and so and so like TC or whatever with the strikers, maybe Jordan Wilson and helping. Do you know what I mean? And then even like the doc and the physio, like making sure that the players are always needed for, like, no issues, like if there was issues, like how could we sort it? And it's probably the one thing that is a brilliant clog, in my opinion, to a full-time team, but you need the provision with staff to be able to do it right, if you know what I mean. And that's probably what we're feeling at part-time level. The time that you've got with the players is not enough, whereas with the facilities that these boys have got, and obviously when you do get to that full-time market, you can spend more time with the lads.
Right.
Well, he's got his assistant and him down to Villa. Where are you getting us? Come on, you mate.
Wherever he is, in fact, we're in at Aberdeen next week.
Are we? Good day.
Spoke to Sharpie last night, the 20s game. Went and watched the 20s.
Brilliant.
That's what you get. See if you go and watch the 20s.
See if
you go watch the 20s. See if you go and do your job.
I was clips it last night.
So the Aberdeen assistant manager came over, spoke and said we can go and...
I can get us down to Leicester if you want.
He's been promising this. He also promised an interview with Bruni. Who was the other one yesterday? Turnbull. David Turnbull.
No, but I know. I
7 to 10 days.
I talk to Rogers a lot.
Have you not had Scotty on here, no?
No, he's got. I'm typing him. He messages me at genuinely.
He's not.
No, I'm not actually. I swear I'll show him a message.
I'll send Scotty a message.
But I don't think he wants to do it because he just started management.
But we road trip down to Fleetwood.
And go and spend a day with him and work at the bar. Is that a transplant?
Nah.
Is that just Gruish, yeah?
He should come race.
But listen, I'll be getting down anyway to try and watch a game. If I can, Tuesday I'll probably shoot us good, but it should there be a road trip.
Seen they got beat in it.
I'll see if I can beg him to let you in.
Ask him if he'd let us go down.
I just outside the gate.
Have you seen their training ground? It's brilliant.
It's amazing.
It's nice, mate.
We'd be right on the
Have you spoken to him, Tom?
I just messages really. I try not to impose really. You know what it's like. Joining the hip and that, and obviously like really tight, but it's not like we spend every day and every night together. So he's he'll be the same as us. He'll feel how vulnerable it is to be a manager. Win, lose or draw. It's a tough gig. So I'm sure when he starts to stamp his authority and his standards as an individual in the group, he'll get the best out of them. Because listen, he's a winner. He's a serial winner. Do you know what I mean? He is what he is. And obviously he's really tight with Whitty, so he'll have a good soundboard. Brasnick's obviously in there as well. Yeah. I think Stevie went back to the 23s maybe.
Stevie Crennan did he, right?
I think so. I'm sure they flipped because Stevie was the caretaker manager for a wee while, wasn't he?
Kept him up, didn't he?
I think just by the skin of their teeth really, but they still kept them up. So. And as you say, great training facilities. I think the chairman's got a few quid as well. So hopefully.
Did you text him after the game Saturday?
No. But I listened to his interview because I want to learn. So what I mean. So you're always when you've got alliances. It's the same with me listening to yours, obviously. I don't listen to everybody's, but I quite like to see how people present themselves after like win, lose or draw. Do you know what I mean? Because you'll ken yourself. You finish an interview. Did I speak well or did I not speak well? Did I say the right things? Did I not say the right things? And it comes back to that like overthinking stuff, if you know what I mean. But naturally, it's everybody wants to smile at the camera when you've won, Yeah. And then you see a wee different side to people when you get beaten.
You said that about me, and you.
I've seen your hands thrown about a wee bit.
It's good.
You get so angry, You
get angry.
It's very brave. I think it's very brave.
I gave them credit.
You did, mate. Yeah, you did. You did. I know obviously you'd be disappointed with the goals because I watched them back. But listen, that's being a manager, isn't it? It's fixing it. It's making the players that make mistakes feel good about themselves, knowing that like you only need to reverse a week and he's made a brilliant start.
Start, yeah, exactly.
That's the way it
never too high, never too low, mate. Innit?
That's the 100%.
What managers do we see having a potentially good season? Who do you like in the Scottish game?
Have you spent much time with Broncos at all?
No, really not. Really. I was away obviously before Gio come in, so I know obviously still a lot of the lads, and it's like anything. You're naturally intrigued to see what changes for Stevie, and we're obviously love football, so you watch the Rangers team, and anyone can tell you with football and about tactics that like the subtle changes that he made compared to Stevie. If you watch Stevie's team doing at Villa, they look exactly the same as what the Rangers team look like. So you can, that's, in my opinion, the sign of a good coach. You know what I mean? That they can implement the standards. Does it make it a wee bit easier with the level of player? Of course it does. But I've not seen much insight into Gio's training, etc. Obviously, still know Davos and Griggs's and a lot of the boys in there. Plus the younger boys that are obviously getting to train there every day now. Your Leon Kings, your Lowrys.
He's good, King. King's good,
isn't he? He's a good player, mate. He's a great lad. They're both great lads.
Was it last year you watched him?
You just hope that these boys get a chance, because there's a lot of talent there. But the harsh reality is like they need to be better than what's in front of them. So if Leon wants to get in the team, he has to have Connor and suitors, etc. right in his eye line really. And then if you're a Lowry, you need to be looking at like obviously the 3 midfielders. He's not going to take a John Lundstrom type position because it's not his job.
But one of the three
but one of the ones,
yeah.
potentially one of the kind of the wider ones. But then Gio kind of likes hiring wider ones, whereas obviously Stevie liked obviously the ones that come in. So there's maybe 2 or 3 positions that Al could play. There's maybe only 1 or 2 now that he could play. Do you know what I mean?
I do like him though. Every time I see him, I do like him.
He's got a brilliant.
He's got that confidence.
He's got swagger, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's got personality. Listen, he needs to back that up with the hard work. He's obviously not featured this season really. I don't know if he's had a niggle or whatever, or if he's come back and he's not hit the ground running. But that is the challenge for the young players. They have to be better than what's in front of them, which is when you're at a big club, and that's not doing any other club a disservice. It's the same for everybody. You need to knock that person out his jersey. So you need to grab it when you get your opportunities to go and train with the first team. You cannot be that nervous coach, you know what I mean, and find your feet. You unfortunately need to hit the ground running. You need to go and stick your chest out and grit your teeth, bite down in the gum guard and show people that you're meant to be there. If that chance passes, we've all had their chances. Sometimes you never get another.
It's a pillow you're biting on.
I love the pillow, mate. What about any other coaches in Scotland that think he's going to have a good career?
I know you're a Rangers man, but you must be impressed with Big Ange's good, isn't he?
He's brilliant. Brilliant. You know the bit that I like the most about Ange, which intrigues me as a kind of young manager, a young coach, is that he's inverted fullbacks and like the way he plays Ange ball, it can be quite unpredictable. Whereas like, I'm not saying other teams are predictable, but they're sometimes set in their ways, set in their style. Whereas even though like there's a certain way Ange, and listen, people can quote me if I'm wrong, but like I'm just using a tailoring example. He can be in the middle of the pitch as an extra midfielder, but then he can also like.
He does it all the time.
He can sometimes then beat the offside trap to get in. Do you know what I mean? So.
I know what you think. Is that planned on him being there, or is it just went off the cut?
I don't think it is. But listen, somebody might
just
tell me
give them
different.
options and say you see it on the pitch.
Like good players, in my opinion, like even though you've got a style, whether it's with the ball or without the ball, good players react to like what actually happens on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same as like I always use it at my academy, like when kids are like shifting and zipping into pug goals, like if it's hitting the frame, it's a good pass, they get disappointed because you see the kid, he hits the frame or he hits the post or he hits this or he hits that, and it's like, and I'm like, what's up with you? Like good players would move to receive that, do you know what I mean? Whereas like an also good player would maybe no move, do you know what I mean? So like don't beat yourself up too much about hitting like a wee, whatever it is, a 2 or 3 foot pug goal, you know what I mean? Hitting a post or it's just going past, because like to me it's like the weight of the pass and it's how you like shift your body to then slap the pass, if you know what I mean, rather than like actually like it hitting the frame or it's slightly going high or whatever, do you know what I mean? It's like it's all these wee bits that in my opinion are really important.
Lovely pass through the ball.
Love passing.
Lovely pass through the ball.
That was noise came off your foot, wasn't it, when you passed?
Mine squealed. My foot squealed when I passed the ball.
Smooth,
No, smooth. Mine wasn't smooth. Mine was usually fucking bobbled in with it. Deal with that.
I like smooth passes.
Deal with that. Can I ask one last time, please?
Yes.
Please. When you and Bruni were younger, what separated Jenk Bruni, no clue you here, for the sort of rest of the young players? What was it? Is it mentality?
Just his, probably like his, the difference between like your Gazzies and your Scotties and myself and Whitties was like, I like to think everybody thought that cluster of players were like right good players. Scotty was probably like, the bit that set Scotty different from other people would be just his energy and his enthusiasm. Like just, he was like what you would call like the old-fashioned nippy sweetie when he was a kid. An actual thing under Brendan, he started to play his position under Gordon, and like he's international. He become like a top CDM. Do you know what I mean? Like with him, without the ball. Do you know what I mean? He was always available. Handle the ball, lend it. Do you know what I mean? Like do the dirty work, do the yards. Like a leader on the pitch. Probably when he was a bit younger, when I played with my youth team, and probably when he first started to break through, even under Mogga when he used to play a bit wider, he probably was just like fully enthusiasm and energy. I think he's actually said it in one of his Fleetwood interviews that he took pride in going back every pre-season, no matter what age he was, to be the fittest. He wanted to win the sprints. So like a lot of people might say, "Oh, you win the sprints," and I understand, and I'm not going to change people's opinion. If you're the blue side of the city, you didn't like Scott Brown. If you're the green side of the city, you'd love him to bits. I think one thing I would say is that every team that would have a Scott Brown in it would love him to bits.
100%. 100%.
And he's going to come on the podcast a couple of times until you get a job.
Hopefully, if you have me on it.
Definitely.
Love you.
If you have
We
me
need
on
somebody
it.
with a bit of knowledge, didn't we?
Oh, shy. Fucking zero at the moment.
Kevin Thomson, what a man.
Unbelievable, Tommy.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers, Tommy.